We begin tonight with a scary and potentially violent situation at an Omaha church this morning. This is the jarring video. One person clinging to a second-story window. What's going on? The church is located just south of downtown near 9th and William, and as 6 News' Bella Caracta reports, in the end, one person ended up in custody, and the congregation left to clean up.
Troy Arnold didn't need an alarm Sunday morning to wake up. Instead, the commotion at the St. Francis Cabrini Catholic Church across from her apartment did the job.
I heard a loud bang and then immediately heard sirens.
At 6 a.m., the priest inside called 911, reporting a woman broke into the rectory where he lives. A large response followed.
Our K-9 unit, emergency response unit, and Omaha Fire Department.
The priest barricaded himself for safety in a second-floor room until he crawled out of danger through this window, says Lieutenant Jack Ratonia.
They used a fire truck to get him out of the residence.
Then SWAT and crisis negotiators tried to get the suspect to follow. It didn't go as smoothly.
They were breaking windows, and then there was like smoke bombs coming out.
A nearby resident live streamed while it happened.
And she was armed, she was in possession of a knife, and she was non-compliant with the officers.
She did try and spray the officers with bear spray that was inside the rectory.
The church wasn't her first stop of the morning. An hour earlier, she allegedly stabbed someone else and tried to set the house they were in on fire. Hours after the first church incident, around 10 a.m., responders hauled her back up as she hung from this window, brought her down, and loaded her into the ambulance, barefoot and asking for oxygen.
So the entire inside of the structure is destroyed.
Left behind is a mess to clean up. A Sunday service turns into a Sunday of service to the church building. On your side in Omaha, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
OPD says charges against the woman are pending. St. Francis Cabrini canceled both services this morning. According to its Facebook page, they will be holding Mass tonight at 5:30.